can do anything. Anything I want, everything I can. Some things you won't.
Welcome to Breaking the Pattern, a podcast where we believe anything is possible for people when they put their minds to the task. Our mission is to help folks optimize their daily lives and reach their full potential by changing mindsets and creating small habits that have huge impacts. Our quest is to help people break harmful patterns of the past and move forward with a new outlook and a new way. I'm your host, Peyton Rose, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Cody Sheastel. Hello, Cody.
Hey, Peyton.
How's it going?
Not too bad.
All right. Our last podcast, we covered the power of habit and talked a little bit about works from Charles Duhigg, James Clear, and Mel Robbins. 3 very, very powerful books that we absolutely suggest you go and acquire and read. This week, we're going to continue expanding on those ideas around habit through the lens of William H. McRaven's book titled Make Your Bed and Greg McKeown's book titled Essentialism. Now, Essentialism is near and dear to my heart, as you know, Cody. That was the first piece of literature that put me on the path I'm, quotes around it, running today. And I am, historically a yes person. Essentialism, we're going to learn, teaches us all about becoming a no person. During that time in my life, I was completely swamped by all the non-essential issues that McKeown confronts in his piece. And it was game changer, first game changer. It started everything.
And, I think this path to essentialism, is very universal for all of us. We start out our lives very young, not specialized in anything, ready to take on all these different tasks. And once you become specialized, once you become more valuable, and once you get your career in this certain level, there's a lot of things where it harms you to say yes to. Even great ideas, great things that would make you a lot of money, a lot of comfort, a lot of results, but then you would be trading off these way higher return things that now you've obliged yourself into a 7 out of 10 quality deal, and you're like, oh crap. There was a 10 out of 10 right here, but I didn't have my stuff situated to even jump on that opportunity.
And Cody's referencing the 7s and 8s. The 7, he's jumped a little bit ahead there, but it's a wonderful foreshadowing because it's so true, right? Like in our journey around business and personal development, we're swamped, completely swamped with a million different directions we could go, or a million different, yeses we can say to low value actions, right? And it's once you start realizing like what you're trading off, man, it's tough. It's just tough, right? It's tough to go through that and walk through that process of being like, what is absolutely most valuable? But 2, it's also massively empowering once you start taking those steps. So to reel it back, we're going to start first with Mr. McRaven's book, Make Your Bed. It's a shorter read, but man, is it powerful. I think this got famous with his...
he had a speech probably, 10 years ago on YouTube, and there's a book that he derived out from it, but it's a very essential on the words he chose. Very they almost speak for themselves in many ways.
Yeah, they do. It was at one of the Texas universities. You can look up William H. McRaven commencement speech, and it will come up. Very, very powerful. He took that speech and expanded on it in a book called Make Your Bed. And the first, the one idea, if I was going to take anything away from Make Your Bed, right, is in the title. First action of the day, making your bed. The concept that to get a win immediately, first thing in the morning, is going to start wiring us for success for the rest of the day. And those of you guys that don't know, General McRaven. He was a very prominent individual in the United States military. And so this all comes with massive experience behind it in some of the toughest situations and in some of the, most critical environments, right, you could ever imagine. And then, right, I mean, we're talking about, war. And he starts it off with get up and make your bed, right? There are a million things that you could choose to do in a day. And he's like, first thing you got to do is this simple task.
Yeah, and he makes a good comparison, to like his first impression, leaving mom and dad's and going and all of those little hygiene rules, in boot camp and whatnot. And he's like, in a college dorm for someone who didn't go to boot camp, he's like, you could leave your trash and just get 3 inches of chip bags and crap all over your floor, and there's no mom and dad aren't there to to tell you what to do. And he said when in boot camp they would what was it called, pancake? Was it called pancake you, or
what was it?
Where they would make them go up into the ice cold bay water.
Oh, sugar cookie.
Sugar cookie.
Sugar
That's
cookie.
what it is.
Yeah.
And
sugar
it'd make you go if you didn't have all of your cleanliness tasks in order. Your punishment would you have to sugar cookie yourself and go up into the cold bay water and then roll around in the sand, and then you have to put your whole uniform on and go through the whole day in that. And that kind of was the motivation to anyone who didn't get that discipline from their parents. It immediately gives them that account.
Yeah, well, and it was like it started with making your bed. If you didn't make your bed, that was the first test. First sugar cookie test of the day was first thing in the morning. They came in and checked your bed. Yeah, and as you read through the novel Make Your Bed, or the title Make Your Bed, you'll see that he's broken this down just really, really practically, right? Like you can take these ideas and implement one by one. I mean, you can look at the chapter headings. So like walking through the chapter headings. 1, you got to start your day with a task completed. 2nd, like his 2nd chapter was you can't go it alone. You got to have somebody there with you, right? Which is like, absolutely. You have to have people that support you and people that are there behind you in times of need. For him, it was a terrible parachuting accident, and his wife was the one that was a catalyst that kind of pushed him forward. So, the idea that we are, that successes are made in singularity is ridiculous. You always have somebody there, need someone there to support you if you really want to see success and reach goals that you've set yourself. You'll never be able to go it alone. Then he goes into the fact that it doesn't really matter, how big you are, how strong you are, how fast you are, how smart you are. It's your dedication, the heart that you have that you put behind things, right? That is so important to success. We see this story portrayed so often. Massive talent, doesn't have the dedication or discipline, and that talent is eventually squandered, right? Because talent, we all know, can only take you so far. He mentioned one of the officers. He was standing in the hall, and one of the officers that was there, he didn't know it was an officer at the time. There was a small guy standing there looking at these pictures, and he goes in. He's trying to become a SEAL, I think, at this point, a Navy SEAL. He walks into the office, and the general there in the office at the time notices the guy in the hall, brings him in. This ends up, and he's sitting here judging this guy the whole time, like, look at this small little dude. What? I was just outside, and the instructors were all 6'3", 200 plus, totally yoked out, guys. What's this guy going to do? Come to find out, this guy was a major hero, had done things no one could believe, and most people would never be able to stomach, right? And it's all because of heart, right? It's like, doesn't matter your size, doesn't matter your ability, your strength, how smart you are. What kind of dedication do you put into your goals and every day, right? Like, what's your system? Then we walk through the fact that life's not fair, right? Life isn't fair. Things are going to happen. There are going to be setbacks. No matter what, keep driving, keep going, right? And that's a big one for me. I'm always preaching, like, even if you have to crawl, keep going, get there. You'll eventually start walking again, right?
Yeah, and this would walk you back to our first podcast where you kind of walked through Peyton's journey from basically crawling to, to where he is now. And life's not fair. Sometimes you get in a wreck from someone on a DWI, and and you get different challenges.
Yep. Suddenly, all of a sudden, the 2008 market happens, right?
Yeah.
And the bottom drops out of everything, or COVID happens and we're all locked up, right? That's not fair. Life's not fair. But if we're going to use that excuse that life's not fair and therefore we're not going to try, I mean, first off, this podcast isn't for you. If the life's not fair and therefore I don't have to try idea is something that's near and dear to your heart and you're listening to this, you might want to stop now.
To be fair, they're probably not listening to this.
You're right. You're right. I believe we do attract a different type of person to this podcast for sure. But that idea does stand, and even the strongest of us sometimes, we have setbacks. Our biggest challenge, the thing we have to make sure is that it's how we react to those setbacks, right? The failures are going to happen, man. They're going to happen. I fail every day. I fail so often every day.
Yeah, it's only a bad thing if you don't learn from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Failures, a chance to grow and to
every
get
time.
Better.
How do we react, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. And then he goes, like, walking through the book, continuing on, he goes into daring greatly, which, resonates with me, Brene Brown, right? So we're going to get to some of Brene's books down the line, and her work down the line, unbelievable work. But daring greatly, willing to go the extra mile. For him, it was turning upside down on that rope, right? Descending on that rope in a way that he hadn't before so that he could hit that time. And for me, I look at so many different, places in our lives where we have the opportunity to go a little bit further, try a little bit more, give a little more effort. And we don't know what's on the other side of it. Matter of fact, most of the time it's horribly scary, that extra effort or that chance or that little bit of risk. And so very easy for us to pivot and not actually go through with a risky or what's, most of the time is seemingly risky action or idea. But on the other side, of that daring greatly, there are talking about growth and chances to learn. Like, the chances to learn are absolutely insane. And then that leads us to, daring greatly, standing up to bullies, right? So next chapter for him is standing up to the bullies. And that's another one near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, swim with the sharks.
Swim with the sharks, like stand up with the bullies, swim with the sharks. You got to be able and be willing to go to bat and go head to head and put yourself into situations that are extremely uncomfortable. And this is, for me, one of the things I could never stand was the bully. I could never stand the bully, man. It was, and I know that these bullies out here, they've got some trauma that's driving them. I really am a believer that all of us at our core are trying to do the best every day with what tools we've been given, and some of us have given some pretty horrible tools. But if you're the bully, you should expect somebody to put you in your place at some point.
Yeah.
Like straight up, and they deserve to be. And your traumas, you can't just go on being like, well, I'm beaten at home, so therefore I'm going to beat everybody around me. I mean, you can, but it's not gonna lead to a fruitful place for sure, right? So, standing up to the bullies, swimming with the sharks. His example in the book was, I think, off the coast of Coronado, right? And they were having to swim out to a destination. This particular area is just filled with great whites. They're in the middle of the night. People have supposedly died on this training mission, on this part of this leg of that training, and they mustered up the courage to go through and get through that, which is, swim with the sharks, unbelievable. Then we rise to the occasion, right? So you swim with the sharks, and sure enough, you're willing to do that. You are going to rise to the occasion. And rise to the occasion, that's yours. That's a thing that I think you sum it up really well with saying you don't rise to the level of, what is it?
You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so you can't just, without putting these systems into place, without taking those daily actions, consistent daily actions, making your bed, getting into a habit stack routine, starting to do consistent, having consistent healthy meals and healthy workout times and reading times, right?
And some goals are more important than being fearful or staying in your comfort zone.
Right.
There's a lot of essential questions that got to be asked. Like, is this goal worth the opportunity cost? But I mean, if you decided you're trying to get something done, I mean, it generally requires you to step outside of your comfort zone, and you can't let that fear hold you from that.
And that, you mentioned that is one of the things for me that was really, really resonating. Somebody I think it might have been Simon Sinek who was talking about North Stars. And you're going to see, I think, a lot of leaders talk about this once you kind of get into this space, this ecosystem. But once you really decide on your North Star, right? Like, this is my North Star. This is my final goal that I'm looking for. If you start bumping every decision that you make up against whether or not it's leading you towards that North Star, man, is that powerful. You're able to take out so much emotion around decision making, so much emotion around what should be my next step today. Well, if it doesn't align with your North Star, then don't take it. Take steps that align with your North Star. Now, you've got to define your North Star. One of the things that makes me crazy about humans is most of us don't have a North Star. We don't have anything we're actually driving towards. We're just out here driving around.
Yeah, just cruising.
Cruising around.
And then on other people's whims, you become the labor for their dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're doing that.
Right. And so many people live their life on autopilot and in cruise control with no goal that they're driving at, when you don't have to. And it doesn't have to be this massive goal. I think that's a misnomer that we get out here in our society today, is that, a goal has to be massive. It has to be huge. It has to be life-changing, world-changing. No, I don't agree with that. It can be raising good kids, right? Yeah. It can be, beating depression.
This is a good tie-in to learned helplessness, too. Like, we might set lower goals and lower expectations for ourselves because of this mental cage we put ourselves in.
Well, and I'll let's move forward, right? So to kind of sum up what we're going through with Make Your Bed and McRaven, he's all about giving people hope and never, ever quit, right? So what we're going to do right here is not quit and move right into essentialism. So essentialism, Mr. Greg McKeown, the disciplined pursuit of less. Man, the disciplined pursuit of less. So where do we start on this? Let's go.
We start on no.
We start with no.
That's right. You have to learn to see no in a new way.
Yeah.
Like there's a way to say no gracefully, where you're not denying the person, you're denying the request from that person.
Okay, all right. So let's reel it back.
Sure.
So first, the results we want. Let's take it on the North Star. Let's keep that North Star thing going, right? What result do we want in life? Because he kind of breaks it into your results, your efforts, and then finding the best yes, right? So first you have to really determine, and he's all about doing the self-audit. Like, what is the most, I've got a goal, I've set a goal. What is the most essential thing? What is the result that I want first? What is the result that I want? What are the efforts that I need to take to realize that result? And then how do I start saying no to everything that doesn't put me in line with that result and find the best yes that's going to put me in that place to reach that result, right? So you have to explore what you really need, or eliminate what you really don't need, and then execute on those actions that will get you to the goals. And that's where you have to realize, like you were saying, that helplessness idea, realize that we have the power to choose. We have the power of choice on how our lives are going to unfold. We aren't helpless. We don't have to be helpless. We are not humans that reality is happening to. The world isn't happening to us. We're happening to the world, right? We are out here making things happen or just allowing things. And that goes back to growth and fixed mindset from Carol Dweck, right? But really, and they call it the internal locus of control or the external locus of control. So people with an external locus of control generally think that the world is happening to them. They can't control the powers that be. They can't affect any kind of change in the world. People with an internal locus of control really believe that they can influence their lives and the lives of people around them, the world around them, that they can be a catalyst for help and change, right?
And so we fall into like default decisions, default patterns, and default habits. And we often say yes because it's just the easiest thing to do to appease people we care about, the things that they have expected us to do. I think this is a good tie back into that learned helplessness. We often put ourselves into these little cages. There's a good example that Greg gives on the dog experiment, where they have these 3 different dogs. One was just on a platform. All it could do was be shocked. One had like a lever that could stop the shocking, and one wasn't shocked
at all, right?
Yeah. And so they put them into a different room where there's two floors, one where it shocks you and one where it doesn't. The dogs that had the dog that wasn't shocked and the dog that had the lever weren't in this mental cage, and they were okay. I can get over here to this side, and I'm not going to be shocked. The dog that didn't have that option to begin with just accepted that fate and just stayed there because it didn't know there was a alternative. It didn't. It put himself in that mental prison.
Yeah, and that's something I think it's so valuable if we can take on that internal locus of control and realize that we are not helpless, that the world isn't happening to us, right? Like that is, and it's tough. It's tough, especially if you've been programmed or you've kind of fallen into the rut of like, this is life, this is my lot, I've got to accept it, I can't do anything to change it. It is tough to pull yourself out of that murk and mire and get into a place of empowerment, right? But I truly believe, I think, I'm not going to speak for you on this, but I think the podcast is about the habits that we start putting in place that allow us to get those wins, that allow empowerment, right? And they're tiny. That's what's crazy about it. None of this stuff is huge. It's all tiny little things. Get up. First thing you do, make your bed, right? That's it. You've already ticked off in your mind like, man, I just got to win right there. And it's telling yourself right off the bat, I am not helpless. I just made my bed. I'm moving on to the next action of my day. And if you've got those actions planned, especially on the front side of your day, bam, you're off to a winning start, So that's huge there. Now let's take it a little bit further. Talking about the decision-making process, he really looks at it as trade-offs. It's a trade-off. Every decision you make is a trade-off. Can't agree more, right? Every decision we make we're either saying yes to something that's extremely valuable or no to something, or yes to something that's less valuable, right? So we've got to decide on what trade-offs we're willing to make with the decisions we're willing to adopt. There's an opportunity cost, right, for every single action, every single decision we make. And so we have to look at going back to the short-term pain, long-term gain, right? Most people are saying yes in the moment, saying yes to that very easy win, that easy, opening the bag of chips or whatever small little habit they have, right?
Yep, and back to that story I started this off with, it's the letting go of the 7s and the 8s and leaving room for the 10s. And then if taking those 7 and 8 opportunities, it blocks out the 9s and the 10s that when they come around.
So let's flesh that out for folks just a little bit. So he puts things on a scale of 1 to 10 in value, right? And most people, what we find, especially as we start to gain some control or we gain some sort of, success, we find ourselves, even if, let's say you haven't gained control, we are inundated every day, especially in today's society, every day with so many decisions we can make. So we're always being sold something. There's always a program. There's always a party. There's always an errand to run. There's always something to do that can put off these higher level, what he would say are level 10, right, or 10 value decisions that are between, I think he takes it a little bit further in the book, between 4 to 7. What we do is we find ourselves first making decisions that are 4s, 3s, 4s, 1, 2, 3, 4s. Then we move up the ladder to 7s and 8s. And it's like, okay, this is a little bit more important. But if we are really bumping that, these decisions we're making that are a 7 value up against the value of the 9s and 10s, this doesn't make much sense, right? So we want to get, what we find is we move up the ladder, and then we end up in this place where 7s and 8s are really, really easy to say yes to, because one thing, dopamine, right? They hit us, we're able to accomplish some small task right in the moment. It's like, okay, I got this errand done. Feels great. Well, is the errand actually moving you closer? And I'm very guilty of this, right? Is the errand moving you closer to that level 10, that 10 value that you dedicated yourself? And are we now, instead of making this, saying no to the 7s and 8s, making decisions to say yes to the 10, are we now kind of in a rut of just saying, yeah, I'm accomplishing things, I'm ticking things off my to-do list every day, but in actuality, these 7s and 8s that just feel good in the moment really aren't moving me towards that level 10 that I'm looking to get to.
And what would be even worse than saying no to someone and regretting or being upset about it for a few moments? Wouldn't it be worse to say yes and then regretting that for several days or weeks or the rest of your life?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, that's what that's it, right? That's the rub of it all, is that we say yes to these short-term comfort ideas, and 10 years down the road, it's like, man, if I'd have made decisions differently, damn, where am I in this, right? And kind of, this is tangential, but I always kind of go back to that, you'll see it online a lot, like folks talking about interviewing people that are, kind of in the last leg of their life. What are the things that they wish they would have done differently? And you can see so often that it's making those number 4 through 7 decisions and not really making the decision to say yes to those big 10s that would have had a real impact in their life.
And then for people who are yes men and women like me and Peyton, the awkward pause is something that is just a good concept to drop down to. People like me and Peyton, just instinctually, we want to say yes. Yeah. Let's take it on. Yeah. Let's put the weight of the world on my shoulders. I'm capable of it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yep.
A lot of the times, if you took a small pause before you said yes, you'd hear that little voice in the back of your head tell you, it gives it a second to catch up with your that part of you that just wants to take on everything.
Yeah. So let's get into the way of the essentialist, right? You've really kind of cracked open that chapter in this, which is the way of the essentialist. And one of the first ways is learning to say no in a new way. Once you master how to say no gracefully, you've got to accept that saying no often requires trading your popularity for your respect, right? So you're going to now, once you get into this mode of being like, I am bumping everything up against my North Star and my level 10 decision, I have to start having the capability to say no and say it in a way that, isn't going to offend people, isn't going to make me look like I'm just being an asshole saying no. A great way he put it is, you're not saying no to the person, you're saying no to the request, right? So I'm not telling you no and therefore saying I don't think you are of any lesser value. It's saying, hey, I'm thinking about this, the pause, right? That pause, I'm thinking about this, and while I'm thinking about it, what I'm doing is I'm bumping this against my level 10 decision, and either this is going to align with it or it's not. What I've also noticed in that, right, is people start looking at you differently. People start requesting of you differently. People start now auditing before they come to you and just throw a monkey on your desk and say, hey, can you help me fix this? Or just present you with a problem and no solution. Just like, here's a problem. I don't know what we're going to do. People start to think about, okay, hold on. I know that if I just go to this person and ask them to do something, they might say no. What can I do to affect this before I bring it to them? And when I do bring it to them, I'm going to have suggestions, or maybe I figure it out along the way, right? So that was something I really noticed. What you're doing is protecting yourself, protecting your decision-making process. And it helps, I find, it helps people around you whenever you start to protect your decision-making process, that people around you are going to also, one, recognize that, but then as well, start making decisions a little bit differently, on their own.
Yeah, and along this process, it might be it's also learning the essential nature of what kind of people that you want around you.
Yep.
And this could really reveal to yourself mistakes that you've made yourself on bringing people who stray you away from that and bringing them in too close and treating them like a opinion that you need to heed to.
Yeah, going back to, I said I'm going to save it 175,000 times. I guarantee I am. Who is in your circle, right? Who are you surrounding yourself? And what type of person do you want to become, right? James Clear. What type of person do you want to be? And do these decisions that we're making day in, day out, hour in, hour out, minute in, minute out, do they align with who we want to be? And are these the type of people we want to put around us, right? Because we know that our circle of 5 is going to influence who we are. Can't get away from it, period, point blank. So what we have to do in talking about protecting that, we have to learn the habits that prevent the non-essential from coming into our lives, right? So what are the habits, going back to that habit stacking and those micro habits that James Clear and Charles Duhigg and Mel Robbins talk about? What are those small habits that are actually protecting us from those non-essential activities that we could get run down into, right? We've got to protect our time to focus on the actions that are truly essential. And we'll get into that later with deep work, right? From, who was deep work? Why am I forgetting his name right now? Georgetown professor, deep work, Cal Newport, right? Cal Newport's works are digital minimalism, deep work. These are perfect examples that we're going to talk about down the line in this podcast of how we can start protecting our time and getting the work done, making the decisions that are right for us, right? Saying no to those 1,000 things that are presented to us every day and saying yes to the most valuable actions. So thinking about that, right? And the art of the awkward pause and learning the habits to present the non-essential. Everyone's selling, right? That's something we come into every single day. Everyone's selling something. We have to learn how to say no. We have to learn how to focus on those things that are most important for us. With that, this is something that I've got my problem with. I've got to include this more in my life, is the idea of play, right? So play being a very, very important part of our lives and a very essential part of our lives to help us to, one, take some of that stress out of our lives, but then I think it gives us this wonderful outlook on the fun that can be had in life. I think me having kids has helped me out tremendously because I get to see life through that lens, that discovery lens that they have. It's really helped me a lot to set aside time and look through that lens. But then, I was talking to my therapist a couple weeks ago, and we had to implement like an actual a calendar where I'm like, man, I'm going to dedicate some time to play, right? Like I'm going to dedicate some time to play with my wife. And, because I am a workaholic, I'm a yes man. I am most comfortable, I feel, sitting or writing or reading or running or doing whatever it is all day, nonstop, no balance, right? No balance. That's where I exist the best.
I definitely exhibit healthy play in my life.
You do.
I know you exhibit a healthy play when the most serious people in your life encounter you with like, is everything a fucking joke to you? And it can be really hard for a lot of people to accept that that concept. Like just the other day, I was having a Zoom call and was playing a little video game for 5 minutes before the call, and my wife came in. It's like, "What are you, just playing video games?" Like, no.
Right.
It's a hard concept. It's like, oh, so you're just playing around. Well.
Taking a moment to disconnect, because I know I'm about to connect right now into some serious stuff. So I'm going to take this moment to kind of remove some of that stress that I know I'm about to walk into as soon as the clock hits 9. Here we go. We're into full planning mode, which is, that's a great example. And you embody that. You really helped me out so much in being able to bring things back down to earth into that sort of, playful manner. And like, if I'm stressed out, you make a joke and it's like, okay, you're right. Like this is either something we can control or we can't. If we can control, let's take action. If not, like, it's okay, right? And it's okay to have fun in this process because there's plenty of stress. There's so much stress around it, around any kind of growth mechanism or growth model you try to enter. And that being said, another part of this, which is, once again, we're sitting so guilty of, right? Protecting our sleep, the importance of sleep. So full frontal here. I absolutely was a ride till you die, sleep when you're dead person for, my 20s and my 30s. I expect, in the work that I did, I was out on, natural gas rigs, like high level operator, go. I did not understand the value of sleep. And I thought, you can just push through it. No big deal. Lack of sleep just makes you tougher. And now, of course, all the studies show that is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Lack of sleep is just like being drunk. And if you compound lack of sleep over time, it's just like walking around the earth drunk all the time. And once I started understanding that and putting that into the schedule of really protecting sleep, getting the proper amount of sleep, man, did my life change. It was almost instant. We'll get into the novel by James Nestor, Breathe, right, with his mouth taping. I found mouth taping, and that was quality of sleep's massive in this, right? So you've got your time. You set your time to sleep, protect that time, but then also what quality you're getting. So there's all sorts of things leading up to you going to bed on time that are very important. If you're drinking caffeine an hour before bed,
a good resource where we go more in depth on this is with Discover Your Chronotype, Sleep Doctor Michael Bruce. If you want some more in-depth understanding of like each of our unique sleeping needs and discover which one you are, that's a killer resource to get more in depth on that.
And you can go back to that Michael Bruce's. If you go back and read that book, we've got 1-pages on your chronotype. So you take his test, find out your chronotype, when you need to sleep, when you need to be doing things, and then you can go to our website and download the chronotypes 1-page for yourself, and we give you a summary of what your day should look like. We hand that out to every team we ever encounter, right? Because it's so important. Once you realize when people should be doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, and you can program that correctly, your productivity from yourself and your team is just absolutely exponential. You can't be stopped once you've got everybody really dialed into when they need to be doing things, when they need to be getting sleep, how they need to be getting sleep. Absolutely critical. So, thinking about all of this, saying yes to all of these essential practices, it allows us to move towards a more fulfilled life, right? And so we're getting rid of this ideology around helplessness, and we're saying, no, we're going to live a more fulfilled life. We have to realize that if we don't say no to certain things that are of low value, we are essentially dying a different form of death, right? That one, whenever I started thinking about, I think there was a mention of that in the book, right? Mm-hmm. Saying yes to all of these, 1 through 6, 7 level ideas or concepts or activities is essentially putting us in a place of burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm, going through our days just saying yes to everything with no regard for what level of value it's adding to our life, all it's going to do is eventually burn us out, right? And I've experienced that firsthand, being a yes man and seeing what being a yes man does. Because as you said, you end up living other people's dreams. You end up fulfilling other people's dreams. You end up working for other people's dreams while you absolutely deplete all of your mental and physical energy. And then you end up just unhappy, unhappy, tired, done, depressed, right?
And I'm sure this is in the context of stocks. Warren Buffett claims to say no to 99% of the great opportunities that he gets.
And think about that, right? Like that. We got Warren Buffett, absolutely regarded as one of the most successful business people that exist. Mm-hmm. He says no to 99% of the thing, and even if it's in, like, let's say that's not absolutely correct. Let's say it's 92. Right?
That's absolutely correct.
Right?
He something like 75 or 80% of his entire wealth is attributed to like 5 or 6 stock choices, like specific stock choices that he bought and then I guess held on to. I guess.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about that, right, this is one of the most successful people. His whole ideology around life is the word no, right? So, think about that. If you're ever thinking about a decision, that you want to make, it's like, what would Warren Buffett do right here? What would one of the most successful business people in the world do right here? Probably say no unless it's absolutely in line.
And that's someone I'm willing to take essentialist advice from. Like he's got however many hundreds of millions of dollars, and he lives in a very modest house. I believe his house is worth less than mine. On like property value.
Last report I got, he drives an old Cadillac. Like, I think it's an 80s Cadillac. Last report. I might have got him a 90s now. I don't know. Another used car. But exactly. Very, very modest. So, in thinking about that, like, just put it into practical terms. Because I know Warren Buffett, this is, it's kind of a highbrow ideology. Like, to think about Warren Buffett, this is, maybe there's some disconnect between us and him, or the regular people out here just trying to make improvements in life and him. I found this is a great way to kind of put, a filter on it. If it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. And I think a lot of people know that idea, right? If it's not a hell yes, let's absolutely do that. It is for certain going to be a great idea, a great
brings
thing.
me to the North Star.
Brings me to the North Star, right? Like then it's going to have to be a no, right? And if people can see that you are like that's the life you live, they're going to respect that. That goes back to that idea of being respected around this. Something that it's a lesson I feel like I have to learn the hard way every day. But it comes down to, if you're not extremely excited about it and it's not leading you towards those bigger goals, then it's okay to be like, man, no, I'm going to have to pass on this because I've got to do something else, right? I showed you that text where somebody was asking me about joining some, mentor group or whatever it was recently. And I was just like, man, it sounds awesome. Great opportunity, but you're going to definitely have to say no here because I don't think it's going to serve our North Star purpose here. And I don't have the bandwidth, and I'm not going to try to create bandwidth because we're really, really dialing in and really focusing on these things that are really important for us, our personal development, our business development, right? So hard to say no, but you have to dare to say no. And you have to trade that popularity for respect. Then you begin to change the way that people look at you. And part of that is uncommitting, right? We have to uncommit. So that's a concept that kind of wrap your head around. Uncommitting to the things that aren't going to add value to your life and add value to others. Subtract the things that aren't essential and look for those high value actions to add to your life. And he's big on journaling. In the book Essentialism, and you guys, you really should read this. It is unbelievable. He has, his morning ritual is to go through, list 5 things, list the 5 most important things you got to do for that day, and then get rid of the bottom 4. Right? So I got 5 things I know I got to get done today. All right, number 1 is where I start. And once I get to a finalized place for number 1, you have to determine what that is, because a lot of these most important decisions or most important actions, you're not just going to be able to knock out a North Star action in a single, morning. What you're going to do is take a little step towards it. Say, okay, once I get here in number 1, I can call that okay. I can call that good. And then what he says is after you get done with number 1, go back and look at 2 through 5 and then reorganize. Which one now, after I got done with this action, which one of these is now most important? Because it may have changed, right? So I thought that was awesome. It's like making your list every morning. 5 most important things I have to do today that are all related to that North Star. Now I'm just going to focus on number 1, and that's it. And then once I get done with number 1, I'll move on to number 2. Huge, huge, huge thing right there. So you have to create those limits and boundaries, create a buffer. They also talk about creating a buffer, giving yourself that breathing room. For me, I think the buffer, the really important buffer that I found was getting up earlier, getting up early in the morning, finding those non-times, right? So Stephen Kotler talks about non-time. And that's that space in the morning between can be between 3 if you're Marky Mark. If you're Mark Wahlberg, I think he started the 3 a.m. movement. But for a lot of people, it's accepted that, that 4 or 5 a.m. movement up till about 7, 8 a.m. when the rest of the world wakes up is really, really valuable time. Now, it may not work with every chronotype, right? It may not work with your sleep schedule. So you have to find, where in that non-time in your sleep schedule is best for you. So dolphins have a different, and we're referring to Michael Bruce's chronotypes here, folks. So, but, we do know that every one of the chronotypes, every personality type, every person has a time when they can get up, they can get moving, they can take actions that are going to be moving them towards their North Star that are uninterrupted when nobody else is around, right?
Yep, and that's what's the best part about waking up early is there's all these different people in your life that pick away at all your time and your focused time to get deep work done, and it creates a little buffer for you to be able to focus and get those things out of the way when the rest of the world is still sleeping.
Yeah, absolutely, and that time. Think we were talking a little bit about the 1% rule, right? So that time, that's a part of that 1% time. And if you compound that over time, what was it, Seth Gately, our good friend Seth, he corrected us on the calculation. What is it, 37?
Yeah, 37 times because it's the compounding rate of the 1%.
Yeah. So if you take 1% incremental increases or improvements every day over the course of the year, you're at 37 times improvement and increase, right? And that is phenomenal. I mean, if you already have a little bit of expertise or a little knowledge, and even if you don't, you go from gaining no knowledge in a certain arena or around a certain idea to gaining 37 times the knowledge, I don't care what scale you put that on, that is massive improvement, right? And it's 18 minutes a day. It's what it comes down to is being able to put in 18 minutes a day towards an idea or a goal. And if you do that over a year, you're going to move forward exponentially, right? And you continue that over 10 years, continue on through a life, bam, all of a sudden you're off into an entirely different world. So yeah, this has been a really great visit here, man. We've got Make Your Bed by William H. McRaven, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. We definitely suggest that you all go out and get it. If you go to our website, we've got breakdowns on this stuff. We've got the one page for your chronotype. Another one, I'll real quick on this, revisit, right? So we have a thing called 10 wins in 10 minutes. And I think this is a great summary for this, right? We've got an idea. What we were doing as we were going through this entire process is trying to take the top actions or the top ideas from these books and put them into a little playbook, a little roadmap for the mornings where you could start your day with 10 wins, right? And so the philosophy behind this is if you are rewiring, right, neurohacking your brain to have 10 wins, 10 habit stacks in the morning that only take 10 minutes, that you will see crazy growth on the backside of that. And I saw it. I mean, once I started experimenting, I've been doing it for 3 years now. 10 wins, 10 minutes. So our 10 wins will go like this. And they start the day before. It's go to bed on time, right? So, and these are habits. You're getting wins. These are little tiny habits that you will get major wins from that will influence all parts of your life, right? So number one is get to bed on time. wake up on time, make your bed, sit with your eyes closed for 1 to 2 minutes, sit with your eyes closed, drink 20 to 32 ounces of water, do a light exercise or stretches, very light, expose yourself to some cold water, brush your teeth, groom yourself, say 5 self-affirming statements in the mirror, right? That's Mel Robbins' high five. I think that was a part of that. And I got that concept originally from a post-depression writer, right? And then for me, I love playing your theme song, right? Now, after you get all that done, play your theme song and head out the door. Here's my theme song. I'm going into the world with my theme. And don't make your theme song about death and destruction. I mean, maybe. But I really like the affirming idea behind it. But the overall concept is we try to construct 10 wins, 10 wins you could start your day with that would take you any more time than 10 minutes, right? And you can reconfigure these and come up with your own. But the idea here is to start trying to track on 1, 2, 3, 4 habits right in the morning that you do every day, right? And then after you do this for 20 days, 15, 20, 30 days, after a certain concession of repetition, because it's not really about the number of days you do it, but the times you repeat it. Do this over time, you start stacking more habits. And then just watch how this stuff starts to affect the rest of your life. I thought it was just so monumental whenever we started implementing this, and I started implementing it in my life and started seeing like things changing everywhere because I got to bed on time and I got up on time, right? And then I drank some water, made my bed, drank some water, did a little exercise. I feel great before everybody else is even up. So take that with you guys. Go to the website. We've got it up in the top left-hand corner. You can get your 10 wins in 10 minutes. Reconfigure it how you'd like in a way that benefits you the best. As we always say, this is all biological, so we can't prescribe you any one particular thing that's going to change your life. But you go and start experimenting with the stuff. You're going to find ways and actions that are going to be most beneficial for you, that are going to really, really help you reach those North Star goals. And so we wish you all the best in this. We'll see you on the next episode. Links are in the description. We'll talk to you guys soon. Go forth and conquer. Peyton Rose signing out. Cody Sheasel signing out with that little anecdote. Optimize everything.